Previously on the Kultur'd podcast.
So for this episode's guest, this man really needs no introduction, but we're going to get it to him anyway. He's an award-winning screenwriter and producer of great shows like Everybody Hates Chris, The Boondocks, Winning Time, The Lakers Story that was on HBO, graphic novel creator. He was a stand-in for Michael Clark Duncan and a fellow black horror aficionado. Please welcome the amazing Rodney Barnes.
One night, I see a trailer for Blacula. I'm a kid. I'm 6, 7 years old, whatever it is. And I begged my mother to take me to see this movie. And she did. And not only was the movie black, you know, he comes from Africa, well, Transylvania in this movie, but he was African. He comes to America and, you know, South Central. But the audience was all black. And it was one of those experiences where if you're old enough, where the black people talk to the screen. Mm-hmm. So it was like an interactive experience. It wasn't just going to the movies like, you know, up until that point, the movies would be for Disney movies and that kind of stuff. But this was a completely different experience. And so it stuck with me. And then as I got older and I would revisit the movie, I saw some of the problematic elements of just blaxploitation in general, not having budgets, plot holes, different things. So I said that if I ever got the opportunity to redo it or play with it, I would sort of extricate the parts that were problematic and elevate the parts that I thought really worked. And the biggest part that really worked was the late great William Marshall, to me, who was a Shakespearean actor, Othello, and to me, he was as good as Bela Lugosi was as Dracula. So I wanted to try to elevate the idea of him, to put him in an elegant setting. Even though he's in the same place and all of that, the ideas behind the story were just as big as they would be for one of those other movies.
I want to focus on the great things that,
just pulled that out of the
So the first graphic novel that your company, Zombie Love Studios published was Blacula, Return of the King.
That scene for me, I think my favorite part was Skillet. It was just like, listen, Skillet, everybody's got a friend like a Skillet. You're a VIP, you got your bottle, they come out, we gonna drink this champagne, like, we're gonna get into that. You have a friend like Skillet?
I was Skillet.
You on the inside.
I was Skillet. Yeah, a dude that you don't know what he does for a living. He doesn't come to the club, and he's always happy.
Or Tommy.
Tommy just heard. Yeah, Tommy, but you just heard he got shot, and he's just gone.
And Skill just rolled up, and you can tell he's like a taker. He's got a mooch or two, but he just rolls up and like, "Say, Jack, that's a boss cake you got on there, man. How much you selling it?"
For me, like, that was wild. So, like,
And he was chasing her for a while.
yeah, a good strong chase.
Yeah, and he convinced her after he chased her to go in the house in the bed.
That's some deep love.
And he didn't have a job.
And no doubt.
Yeah.
He was literally dusty. He had to go in jail for the dust.
Yeah, and she still loved him.
And she still loved him.
Introducing an electrifying podcast, uncovering the richness of Black culture in cinema. Tune in and prepare to be entertained as we dive into drama, relationships, hilarious comedies, and the mesmerizing power of Black people on the silver screen. Don't miss out on this captivating journey through the heart of Black cinema. This is Kultur'd.
Black palms in the air, no arraignment. No need for television, this is black entertainment. It's facts and I'm claiming. And I'ma get you suckers, so knuckle up, Wayne. And we gon' knuckle up at the weigh-in. You just got knocked the fuck out. I do it for the respect, I don't do it for clout. I do it because I'm fluid, water in the spout. When shit is getting spooky, get out. We black after all, we pack down the hall. And we be misunderstood with our backs against the wall. It's better to die on your feet than live on your knees. And I'd rather be standing tall like a soldier at ease. If you want something done right, do it yourself. Let your actions speak louder, move with your stealth. If culture ain't found in your jeans, step your denim up. Take them hands and put them up for black cinema.
that just your transition to LA and really just kind of having that gritty, scrappy start, humble beginnings and going. Can you talk just a little bit about that and how that's impacted you now today?
Yeah, I mean, it's humbling. It's weird because when I say I slept in my car and I drove out, it's like people, oh my God, lived in your car. It wasn't that bad for me.
No.
It's like, it wasn't like as traumatic as when I tell my kids or I tell, a lot of young writers will come and say, give me some advice. And it actually, in a way, helped me because I knew it was nothing for me back in Maryland. Nothing against Maryland, still in my hometown. But I was so close to what I wanted to do that it was better living in my car close to this than it was going back to Maryland as a security guard.
Yeah.
So I never really felt like I was missing anything. I mean, when you work on movies, even as a production assistant, food is free.
Yeah.
I got along with transportation. Back then, they give you gas. And you could take a shower in the Honeyway. So like everything that I needed to live, I did. And by the time they went, midnight, 1 in the morning, I'm sleeping. 5, 6 in the morning, I'm back working again. Yeah. So, it really wasn't that bad for me.
Yeah.
So how long did it take you from coming to LA, then eventually getting set work and all that stuff to eventually break in?
I got here in 95, 96. I worked on the movie Bulletproof. And I started working on my wife and kids in 2000. And in between, I probably worked every job. You mentioned the Green Mile. I was Microsoft Duncan Standard. I was location manager, assistant location manager, security guard, bodyguard, production assistant, like virtually everything that you could be. To add a garbage company where I would, they would give me $1.50 a bag to put in the back of my truck to get rid of the garbage. And I had to drive around LA and look for open dumpsters, which is against the law. Very much so. But I did it. And if they want to go back in 95 and see if they can charge me, go for it. But I did everything that I could do to sort of survive. Yeah. That was the nature of it. But it wasn't like bad. It wasn't like I was hustling.
Yeah.
I was doing what I had to do in order to stay here. And then once I got in the system, I still started hustling. It was like I would work 2 or 3 jobs. I did the Boondocks while I was doing my wife and kids and Everybody Hates Chris at the same time. I would leave one and go to the other. And, for me, doing that wasn't work in the same way like working at a store or working on Kmart, every Mart, Target, all those stores. I covered them all. And this wasn't work comparatively speaking. To that, being able to sit in a room and talk about ideas and write scripts and with some of the most talented people in the world, just still doesn't feel like work.
Do you ever sit back and watch some of your old work and you go, we did that shit? Like, do you ever sit back and you're like,
I mean, there are times, it's funny because I do a lot of conventions, talent conventions, and then Gary Anthony Williams, who was the voice of Uncle Ruckus, is doing a lot of them too. So sometimes we'll do panels together and we'll talk about, what the experience was like doing the show. And I'm still close to a lot of the people around Everybody Hates Chris and what I can get. It's weird that I don't really look back a lot because I'm so focused on forward because the business is constantly changing.
Sure.
And if you don't change with it, you can miss a step and not be where you want to be. So, and a lot of times, if you look at my IMDb page, my career, I've made pivots along and gone from this to that to whatever because the business is constantly changing. So sometimes I do that, but not probably often enough.
yeah.
The one thing that we definitely got to talk about, you working multiple jobs, hustling for years, decades. Like when we look at younger people or people looking to just work and become a professional, which you are clearly, any advice? Are there certain things or routines that you do on a day-to-day, any mantras that you follow that really keep you moving and pivoting to what's going to be new, fresh, relevant?
Well, I think my mentor of sorts always said, because I asked him that question, and he said, never look backwards. Always look forward. That's where, your life is going. So I try to do that. But also, I think a lot of people don't understand. I didn't understand when I was getting out of Howard and coming here at Howard University. This is a business that you have to create your own world around. Like, you have to discipline yourself. Nobody's going to make you, if you're a feature writer, maybe in television, you have to go to a place every day, or most days, 10 o'clock to however long they do what they do. In movies, you sort of have to create your own structure. And same thing with comic books. I have to create time during the day to be able to sort of pour into all of these buckets, whether I'm developing TV shows, whether I'm writing movies, whether I'm doing comic books, sometimes all at the same time. I do a couple of podcasts. You just have to be able to discipline yourself and get used to suffering well. If you can...
That's a bar right there.
No, but it's true.
Used to suffering well.
It's true. If you don't take it personally that you might miss some holidays and some vacations, while everybody else is outside playing, you got to be inside working. And it's a price that you pay. If you can become comfortable with that price, if you can be comfortable with the idea that you're going to have to do extraordinary things, or you're going to have to give an extraordinary effort to get extraordinary things, and you're cool with that, you can make it in this business. And that's what works for you anywhere. Yeah. So,
I mean, when you think about it, that's a safer alternative than before, because before, when they were making movies, people used to die.
Yeah.
Every time a movie was made.
But every time.
Well, a lot.
Yes, there were a lot of...
But I'm just trained into that wall.
Yeah.
And then that was a shot.
Yes.
You know?
Vampire book. It's about that.
So it's the same kind of, not that the sacrifice of death, but it's the being able to put your body on the line. To a certain extent.
No, I think you have to put your sensibilities on the line, because my parents grew up, they had 9 to 5 jobs. They didn't even understand how this whole thing worked. When I was explaining, well, you go from job to job, well, what happens when the show ends? Well, you go get another one. And that idea that you don't just go to a place, fill out an application, and get a job. You stay there for 20 years or however long until you find one that pays more money. That is so much instability. And at a certain point, it becomes just merit. A lot of times people have to read your script, and you're not there to represent yourself. Right. Before they even meet you, they need to see your work, or you have to have a resume and all of those things. So really being able to psychologically tune your mind away from how conventional work in America works has a lot to do with the level of success in business.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that like culturally now too, with all of the YouTube sensations and comedians, and our generation, like our parents said, hey, get a good government job, get good benefits, work there 20, 30 years, retire, have a good pension, all good. Now that's not a thing. Like if you make it a year and a half, 2 years in a gig, that's fairly long in most industries. And then naturally with writing and having projects and creating, like those things move. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a good story and representation when it comes to parallels with regular people on a day-to-day and your journey in terms of motivation, staying focused, and being okay pivoting and being ready to adapt and staying relevant.
Yeah, I think the world has changed. When I was coming up, even though I worked, that's when you're old, you see, when I was coming up. Working those jobs for Walmarts and all those different places, you could work enough of those to have a halfway decent life.
Yes.
And I think as the world changes, it becomes that much harder to do that, because I don't know if the world has like a blue collar idea. It used to be a factory. I remember my grandfather worked at a factory for a long time. And now when I go back, those jobs don't exist.
What was that? It was an honorable thing.
Yeah.
To have a skill, have a craft, have a trade. It was honorable.
Yeah.
Take care of your family. You go out, you were the person bringing home the bread, bacon, so to speak.
It was Christmas.
Absolutely.
It was a Thanksgiving, and you just lived a normal life. And I didn't know what I didn't have. So it wasn't like there was any pain attached to it. But now it's all about hustling. You gotta hustle.
Do you think we'll ever have any more sense of normalcy see when it comes to that?
No.
Or will this forever be a drastically moving target that we're working towards?
I think when you become a consumer-based society where it's not about necessarily making things in the same way that it was when talking about the 60s and 70s and those times, I think it becomes more of the have and the have-nots, where you have the 1% and then you have everybody else trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I think there's a degree of acrimony that comes with being on the other side of that equation. And I know a lot of my kids, they can't conceive of having to go out in the world and figure out what they're going to do. But, I couldn't wait when I was a kid to get out. Yeah. But my kids are like, no, we got you.
We got to stay here.
Keep telling
So we're staying here.
Yeah. So I just don't know if the world, not only from a practical place of having something to do, but a psychological place of just having that kids don't go outside and play. Outside is dangerous now.
Right.
The killer's outside. That's why the Dateline episodes are sometimes inside. But, when I was a kid, I went out in the morning and came back at night like a cat.
The street lights came on.
The street lights came on and nobody asked where I was, what I was doing. And my kids, I found myself, maybe in the yard, but not in the front of the house. So I'm going to the mall. There's a location to go to. So I just think the world has changed a lot. And
Because the mall's where the shooter is.
that's true. Now the mall's where the shooter is. But I think you have to adjust. You can't really, AI is coming, you got to adjust. Whatever it is that's coming, if you don't adjust, it'll pass you by.
We've got some prime examples. Kodak.
Yeah. I made a Polaroid joke the other day. That's way past Kodak. Kodak still makes film, I think, but Polaroid.
Polaroid is like vinyl. They have them at Hollywood parties for sheet. It's It's Ukrainian blonde models that are doing Polaroids now. So what does that creative process look like when you're actually coming up with a story for a graphic novel? And how do you decide whether it's going to be a graphic novel or whether you're going to try to take the steps to make it into like a movie or TV show?
At this point, the two sort of go together. I make books that are TV and movie friendly.
Mm-hmm.
If you read any of my stuff, it feels like I get that a lot, that it feels like a TV show or a movie. Because I think that way, because I started in television first. A lot of times it works with a lot of writers. They start in comic books first, then they graduate. I've reverse engineered this thing. So it's really more of just a natural way of looking at the story. I look at it from both views.
That's nice. Well, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of yours. I've been a big fan of yours basically since, everybody hates Chris, but the Boondocks.
Mm.
The Boondocks is one of the shows.
It's a classic. That's such a favorite.
Can't do it to anybody else.
I wish you could.
But it kind of harkens your relationship with television and comic books, because the Boondocks, people don't remember, but the Boondocks used to be a comic shit that you'll find in Sunday morning cartoons. You can find it in the paper where black people lived.
It was a weekly strip.
Yeah.
It's a weekly strip. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't remember the strip as much, but they certainly remember the show, because it's still on Adult Swim, I think, or HBO Max.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max, yeah.
So, it sort of has an evergreen feeling. And young people, there'd be times when I'm at an elementary school and people said, Boondocks. That's why y'all so bad.
Everybody's running around like that.
Yes. Or Gangsta-licious. But yeah, I miss that kind of comedy, that kind of tone. Just satire in general. I don't see a whole lot of satire. I think probably Chappelle's stand-up is the closest to what we have at this point of that. But even that stand-up, it's not really like a sketch show. So
yeah. As a comedian myself, those are, because I started doing comedy way back in 2003, so about around the same time that the Boondocks was on television. So it's definitely one of those things where it's like you start off by, this is what I want my voice to be.
Right.
And then it gets to a point where you're like, oh snap, I guess I can't do that. But then again, it goes back to what you're talking about, starting your own thing. Once you start your own thing, you start having freedom.
Yeah.
Right?
Without that, I think it's hard to. I don't think Hollywood buys writers; it buys voices. And if you think about, you mentioned Jordan Peele, or even filmmakers along the way, talking about horror guys like John Carpenter, George Romero, they all have a thing and a way that they approach story that feels Alfred Hitchcock in a way that just feels like their type of thing. You have to cultivate that.
Yeah.
If you just in the writing world, sometimes you get assignments, rewrites, those types of things. They're other people's things, and you're just coming in, sort of playing with it. It's tough in that environment to develop your own thing. You sort of have to put yourself out there, fail, succeed. And at a certain point, the confidence grows. But once your confidence grows, then it's going to be whatever it's going to be, and you're able to sort of make those muscles stronger creatively to get into your deeper self and make your best self.
Thanks everybody for joining us on today's episode of the Kultur'd Podcast. If you like what you saw, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe below. We'll see you on the next episode.